till late in the third quarter. You guys were struggling offensively in that frame. Second half in general didn't feel the same as the first half on that end. Did something change for you guys? What did you see as kind of leading to stalling on that end?
Yeah, I think we were just kind of slow. And every time that we're slow, especially defensively, it just somehow affects our offense.
Sophie Cunningham didn't hold back after this game. And honestly, she had every right to be upset. The Fever completely blew a winnable game, falling 88-84 to the Mystics. That's a team at the bottom of the standings. Indiana had a double-digit lead and control at halftime, but Washington went on a huge 22-7 run that changed everything. This loss dropped the Fever to 7th place, right when playoff spots are on the line. We'll get into what Cunningham said and why it hits different compared to Stephanie White's excuses. So what do you think? Why did the Fever lose? Is Stephanie White to blame? Tell us in the comments.
Overhead is Cunningham with a steal. Cunningham feeds Sims, who goes coast to coast and lays it in.
So they had to make sure they had the right shot clock time as well while they were reviewing that.
So Indiana with a 10-point lead here. 6 minutes until halftime as Boston finds some space and knocks it down. Now Sims launches ahead for Mitchell. What a pass by Odyssey Sims.
Here's what happened. Indiana built a 13-point lead in the second quarter. They were up 40-27 and looked like they were cruising. But just like that, Washington stormed back. They hit them with a 22-7 run. That erased the lead and quieted the whole arena. Suddenly, the Mystics were playing with confidence. They shot 52% from the field and hit big threes. Meanwhile, Indiana's offense just stopped. What should have been a safe lead turned into a one-possession game in minutes.
Playing for the Buckeyes.
Here is the Buckeye product on the backdoor pass, but Mitchell lost the handle. Sutton thought about the three, steps in, Hull got a piece. Dolson has been wide open all possession, splashes home a three, and we are level at 40.
The thing is, that big swing wasn't because Washington had some unstoppable star. It was all about the Fever losing their grip. They had crucial turnovers piling up. Their defensive breakdowns were constant. Indiana committed 21 fouls that handed Washington 26 free throw attempts. Every careless pass or late rotation meant another trip to the line, and the lead just kept shrinking. So the problem wasn't bad officiating. Indiana was just hammering their own scoreboard with mistakes they could control.
Sims with 5 off the bench. Indiana has 8 first quarter bench points. That's typically been a strength when they're playing well, as Iriafen just bullies her way inside. Now Citron being guarded by Lexi Hull. Hull goes over the screen, defends her really well. Citron just has to fire it up, and a circus shot for Citron.
What's crazy is the ones who really made Indiana pay were Washington's rookie duo. Sonia Citron looked totally unshaken and dropped 21 points. Kiki Iriafen just muscled her way to 18 points and 12 rebounds. She grabbed a bunch of second chance boards that completely flipped the game. Their numbers weren't just empty stats. It showed that when Indiana stopped dictating, even a team still figuring things out could take over. The Fever are sitting in 7th place. Playoff hopes depend on these must-win games. So letting a young duo dismantle your lead like that, that's about as costly as it gets.
It's up to the chat. Get excited. It's in the chat. Why at the same time? Because I'm you and you're me. We switch bodies. Zubbed in the chat.
But here's the thing, it's not like Indiana's players didn't show up. Aaliyah Boston was amazing inside. She put up 20 points and grabbed 9 rebounds. That's the kind of steady production that should anchor a win. Kelsey Mitchell facilitated well in the first half. Sophie Cunningham brought the energy, and Lexi Hull showed great defensive effort. The core players worked hard. They didn't quit, and that just makes this outcome even tougher to swallow. The collapse wasn't because of a lack of effort on the floor. It was a lack of direction that left all that effort wasted.
Oh, gets it into Boston. Hand off Mitchell. Indiana has to hurry. Lob back for Boston. Boston finishes. It's a 2-point game, 5.9 seconds remaining.
So the reality is pretty simple. Indiana didn't lose this game because Washington was just better. They lost it because they kept giving away possessions. They let the Mystics control the tempo, and they never found a way to counter once things started to turn. That same pattern has haunted the Fever all season. They'll have strong stretches, but then those turn into preventable collapses. Every time this group takes a step forward, careless mistakes and missed adjustments drag them right back down. And unlike earlier in the season, these late game collapses matter way more now. The playoff race is tightening every single day.
Cunningham looking, finds Mitchell, launches a corner three, it won't go, rebound Ainksler, and this young Washington Mystics group who continues to impress throughout this season, and Sidney Johnson in his first year comes up with a big win on the road.
Which brings us to the pressing question.
Listen, why was there no plan to protect that lead once it started slipping? The entire arena could feel the momentum shifting. So who was supposed to steady things? Who was supposed to make the right rotation or offer a real counter? The answers point in one direction, and that's exactly where fans are putting all their frustration.
Yeah, I think we over-dribbled at times. Our off-ball movement wasn't there. We did a lot of standing. It's almost like we gave the ball to Kelsey and just tried to watch her work. And that's not when we're at our best. I mean, yes, certainly we want to have the ball in our hands, but we've got to continue to get movement with and without the basketball. It was getting stuck. I mean, we want to play 0.5 to 1 second basketball, and we weren't. And it's got to get moving. And
now, Stephanie White's coaching decisions are front and center after this loss, and nothing has drawn more anger than Chloe Bibby's complete absence. Bibby is shooting 42% from 3 this season, yet she played 0 minutes in a game where Indiana's spacing and perimeter shooting completely dried up. White said she sat Bibby because of defensive matchup concerns. Specifically, she worried about rebounding and coverage responsibilities against Washington's lineups. That's White's stated reason. But look at how the game actually played out. Indiana gave up 26 free throws, they gave up wide open threes, and they watched Kiki Irioff dominate the paint. So that explanation doesn't help the frustration at all. Fans saw a proven shooter sideline, and those defensive issues happened anyway. So they're left asking why a potential solution just sat there.
With Chloe Bibby tonight, were there thoughts of maybe plugging her in to try and spark the offense a little bit, or what was the decision behind not playing her tonight?
yeah, there were some thoughts. I think that it matched up defensively more than anything with the way that we were going to try to play them, or in some of our switches and things like that. So that was mostly the reason.
And then just with the rotation, was it just those eight or seven that you ran with? Was it just they were flowing well and you wanted to just leave that going, or what was the thought there?
Yeah, I think some of it was defense. Being able to execute the type of defensive coverages that we wanted to have against this, the way that they play.
Plus, White admitted afterward that Indiana's offense was getting stuck. She said too often, possessions just became giving Kelsey Mitchell the ball and watching her try to work against multiple defenders. That line, "it was getting stuck," has become the rallying cry of the night. It sums up exactly what fans saw happening in real time. When your system falls apart into predictable isolation plays, the clear counter is to space the floor with shooters. Someone like Bibby, for example. Instead, the Fever leaned even harder on Mitchell, and the result was a strained offense with no support.
I mean, I think we had 8 turnovers for 13 points in the second half as well. So we didn't take care of it.
And the numbers totally tell the story here. Mitchell finished 6 for 19 from the field. She had 14 points and 9 assists. She definitely created chances, but she was asked to shoulder way too much, both scoring and starting the offense. Several possessions late in the game ended with her driving into clogged lanes. She was taking contested shots. Meanwhile, shooters were just standing untouched on the perimeter. That kind of usage isn't a knock on Mitchell's decision-making at all. She produced under heavy pressure, but it's tough to ignore how predictable the sets became once Washington started loading the paint against her.
And I think it was something like a 22-7 run, the end of the second, beginning of the third quarter. And those are hard to recover from when anytime really, but when you're missing pieces. And, we've got to make sure that we're sharper at times. We don't have the margin to have lulls within quarters. And then I believe they had something like 21 points from free throw line and turnovers of their 26 in the fourth. And, we control that defending without fouling. You know, we control that taking care of the basketball, decision making at times, and some of it's, you know, playing some people out of position, and some of it's just not being, valuing the basketball in the way that we need to value it, being a little sloppy with it.
But what really gets to fans isn't just the final score, it's the feeling that the Fever sabotaged their own strengths. This roster has solid shooting, veteran fight, and Aaliyah Boston as an anchor. But the rotations and offensive sets seem to clog those weapons, not free them up. Washington didn't win with superstar plays. The Mystics were rewarded because Indiana was predictable and didn't use their players effectively. That's why the criticism is all about strategy, not effort. The players threw themselves into that game. They fought for every inch just to stay close, but the coaching decisions, those are now seen as a drag on momentum. This is happening at a time when playoff spots are tight, and every mistake is magnified. That brings up a contrast you just can't ignore. While the rotations raise questions, the players themselves refuse to let the night slip away without a fight.
On their ball screen coverages right now.
Here's Mitchell on the handoff, bounce pass. Boston, one bounce and a left-handed finish. Here's Boston, the offensive rebound, flips inside to Howard, who lays it in.
You go step up screen, flare on the weak side. They had to make sure they had the right shot clock time as well while they're reviewing that.
So Indiana with a 10-point lead here, 6 minutes until halftime as Boston finds some space and knocks it down.
So Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Sophie Cunningham, and Odyssey Sims, they all gave Indiana the kind of production and effort that usually wins these games. Boston led the way with 20 points and 9 rebounds. She anchored the Fever and she forced Washington to collapse every time she touched the ball. Mitchell worked as both a scorer and playmaker. She finished with 14 points and 9 assists. Those numbers don't even fully show how much of the offense she had to shoulder when possessions got stuck. Cunningham chipped in 8 points, but her stat line went deeper. She had 6 assists and 3 steals. That includes the highlight where she picked off a pass and drilled a 3 on the other end. And Sims, barely 2 games into her hardship deal, added 11 points. She was attacking defenders and was the closest thing to a true point guard Indiana has right now.
Indiana with their work cut out for them here. 6-point deficit, just over 5 minutes left to play. Mitchell, feed inside. There's an easy 2 for Boston. Cunningham leans in, thought she drew the foul. Boston pulls down the rebound and lays it in.
Now the context really matters here. This team isn't just patching holes, they're playing without their entire backcourt foundation. Caitlin Clark is still sidelined, and both Sydney Colson and Erica McDonald went down with season-ending injuries in the same week. That left Indiana scrambling with no reliable ball handlers. It forced the front office to sign players like Sims and Lambert just to stabilize the rotation. So for a roster suddenly stripped of its primary playmakers, the fact that they stayed in control as long as they did says a lot about the fight of the players already in uniform. Boston had to carry even more responsibility inside. Mitchell's workload basically doubled, and Cunningham shifted into a larger facilitator role, all while still doing the dirty work on defense.
Inside.
What a pass by Melvin, too. Really nice.
Mitchell turns on the Jets and gets to the rim.
No one can keep Keller is one of the best rebounders out of her area, which means the ball not directly above her head as Cunningham with a steal.
Cunningham feeds Sims, who goes coast to coast and lays it in. So 4 quick ones for Indiana.
And you could see that collective grind show up in clear moments. Boston's presence inside kept Indiana steady through Washington's runs. She carved out deep position and drew defenders, whether she got the shot or passed to teammates. Mitchell's drives forced the Mystics to collapse. That opened up space even when her own shots didn't fall. Cunningham's steal and three-pointer? That was exactly the type of play that jolted energy back into the team when things looked shaky. It's an emotional boost that doesn't show up in plus-minus, but you can't miss it. And Sims proved why she was added in the first place. Her ability to handle the ball and keep possessions alive kept Indiana from unraveling sooner. Those details are the difference between a team just rolling over and one that keeps clawing late into the fourth quarter. Look, that's exactly why the frustration runs so high. The roster didn't lack production. They got it from every player on the floor. It didn't lack fire. They had energy plays that kept building momentum. What was missing were the adjustment. They needed a closing plan to channel all that effort and finish off a struggling Washington team. The numbers show the players gave enough to win. The film shows the fight was absolutely there too, and that huge gap between what the roster delivered and how it was managed, that's at the heart of where things go next. Because once the press conference started, the divide between what players said and what the coach said became impossible to ignore. Sophie Cunningham's post-game honesty stood in sharp contrast to Stephanie White's explanations, and that difference tells you everything about where this team sits right now. Cunningham didn't dance around the issues. She said it directly. We've had hard injuries, but we have to get back to being dogs. That wasn't just some cliche, it was a blunt message. Opponents don't fear the Fever anymore. They're treating Indiana like a team they can exploit. Cunningham's demand was clear. Find that edge again. Reclaim the toughness, and stop letting the same mistakes pile up.
I think the thing that we just have to continue to do that kind of got us on the run we had before the last couple games was we were aggressive at the opponent attack on defense, and that led to easy transition buckets. That led to everyone being aggressive and on their front foot on the offensive end. And, we have new players, and that's okay, but we just have to adjust, and we need them. We've faced a lot of adversity, but we should be used to that by now. And I think they could just kind of outwork this a little bit, and that just can't be our excuse.
And now let's stack that against White's words. The coach said the offense was getting stuck. She went back to her familiar point about possessions defaulting to Mitchell ISO plays. She also talked about the fouling. Indiana committed 21 fouls that sent Washington to the line 26 times. An incredible 14 of those free throws came in the fourth quarter alone. White wasn't wrong to identify fouling as a major issue, but the real problem is what she didn't address.
You can never really control the outside things. You can't control injuries, and so that's why you really do have to control your mental and control what you can control. And I think that we have a really good group. We're still a tight-knit group. We're adding new players in that are amazing. O's been around the league for a long time, and I know you don't think so, but it's a blessing that you weren't on another team because we need you here. And so I just think it's an adjustment period. The highs and lows, you just have to stay kind of steady, right? Every team faces it. I feel like we faced it more than most this year, but I think this is going to set us up for something good. I don't know if it's this season. I don't know if it's next season, but I think there's always something that you can be grateful for and learn during those hard times.
So that's the core frustration. Identifying a problem is one thing, but taking responsibility for the in-game choices that could have actually changed it, that's a whole different story. Fans saw Cunningham demanding real accountability and urgency. Meanwhile, White's breakdown stopped short of owning the adjustments she could control. Bibby's shooting could have changed the spacing. That would have opened up the paint so Mitchell didn't have to force shots into double teams. Expanding rotations might have protected players from fatigue. That fatigue fed directly into poor defensive positioning. Instead, the players kept fighting through that snowball effect, and the coach just explained, after the fact, how it all got stuck.
What were you guys talking about there after the game?
Yeah, I just think that we've had some hard injuries this year. We've had some different lineups and roster spots. And, to be frank, I don't think anyone else around the league thinks that we can do it anymore. But I think that our group does. And I think that we just have to get that confidence back. When we're clicking offensively, defensively, we're scary. And not a lot of teams can beat us, even with the roster that we have right now. And so for us, it's just remembering who we are. It's our identity. We got to get back to being dogs, got to get back to being aggressive, being on our front foot, and not allowing teams like this to come in here and outwork us.
Listen, for fans, that dissonance just hits hard. You watch players like Boston and Cunningham take accountability, then you hear the coach deflect responsibility into broad issues. That sends a clear message. It says leadership is disconnected from the urgency of the team. Nobody expects perfection, especially with this roster missing so many guards. But the expectation is everyone pulls the same rope. That means players and coaches alike own their role in a collapse. Right now, the players are clearly ready to carry the load, but the coach is giving explanations with very little ownership.
The past couple games where it feels like kind of that wear and tears taking a toll?
You know, not really. And I think that she kind of hit it. You have to give yourself a little bit of grace. You know, when you have so many different lineups, O and I have never played together. O hasn't played with a lot of people, maybe Tosh. But like you have to know her style. She has to know our style. And so it's different, but that's part of being a pro. You got to adjust and you got to learn fast. And I think that's a really cool thing too, because when you click, you click. And so that's scary for people coming in here and trying to play us.
So where does this leave Indiana? That's where you come in. Should White be held accountable for these decisions? Was this more about coaching tactics? Or was it the injury crisis? Or just a roster stretched too thin? Let us know in the comments below. Do you think this was a coaching problem, a roster issue, or simply bad luck in the moment? And here's the bigger question. Should White be replaced, or should she be backed until the roster heals? How the Fever respond to that will shape the coming weeks. Because this isn't about one bad night. It's about what happens if Indiana doesn't fix this split between effort and leadership. The longer that gap remains, the harder it will be to hold on to a playoff spot, especially in a season where every single misstep counts.
Sophie, till late in the third quarter, you guys were struggling offensively in that frame. Second half in general didn't feel the same as the first half on that end. Did something change for you guys? What did you see as kind of leading to stalling on that end?
Yeah, you know, I think we were just kind of slow. And every time that we're slow, especially defensively, it just somehow affects our offense. And
now this loss to Washington wasn't just another stumble. It was a totally winnable 88-84 game that just slipped away. It dropped Indiana to 7th in the standings, and the regular season is running out. The players truly delivered. Boston had 20 points. Mitchell put up 14 points and 9 assists. Cunningham had that all-around grind with 8 points, 6 assists, and 3 steals. Howard helped inside, and Sims added 11 off her hardship deal. But the coaching decisions again defined the night. They left key questions unanswered at the worst possible time. Cunningham summed it up best. She said the Fever have to get back to being dogs. That's the standard the players are setting. Even as White points to fouls, stalled offense, and Clark's continued absence with no timetable for return. So now it's your turn. Why do you think the Fever lost? Do you think Stephanie White should keep coaching this group through the rest of the season? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. And click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.